Can everyone hear me okay? It's wonderful to be back. Thank you, Milan, and everyone. I'll speak a few minutes about how to truly begin and sustain Zen practice. In other words, how to avoid endlessly going around and around in our dreams and delusions. Recently, I have been addressing this issue in terms of the practice being constant and complete. Constant in the sense that it's not just something we go into, do for a while on our cushion, and then get up and do something else. It must naturally, over time, as it matures, come to be the way we are, not just something that we do for a while. Related to this is that the practice then naturally becomes complete, not formally perfection, but rather complete in the sense that nothing is omitted or left out. Nothing is excluded. You come to see in the midst of your difficulties in everyday life, the confusion, the challenges, the failures, that in a fundamental sense, you are not stepping out of the practice. You cannot leave or step out of the practice. It's not always smooth, but it's not something that we go into and out of. It comes to be constant and complete. Recently, I've also been speaking about concentration as a way of making this more concrete. What is Zen concentration? It is not a matter of turning our attention from one thing to another. Rather, instead of being something like a flashlight of self-willed awareness, I'm not going to look at my delusions anymore. I'm going to look at the koan my teacher gave me, or I'm going to focus, concentrate on my breath in the sitting. This is kind of like the flashlight of self-conscious awareness, turning from one thing to another. Of course, I will return to this later. As a process, it is necessary to get our practice into a sustained practice. To return again and again, this kind of discipline is, of course, necessary. But if we are doing it correctly, what becomes clear is that concentration is not some kind of flashlight of awareness, but more a matter of the sunrise coming up. Everything is illumined. Everything, not without exception. Of course, we can turn our attention to whatever is needed at the moment, but Zen concentration must be constant, complete, in a sense so total that it naturally dissolves into itself. There is no longer anything for the self to concentrate on. In other words, the universe is concentrating on itself. To put it more clearly, I realize that I am the universe, and the universe is me. This isn't just poetic license. This is true in a way that is impossible for ordinary consciousness to conceive. The split between myself and the other, myself and the world, myself and who I really am. That split, we split from that split, to use the language of my youth. That split is found to be null and void. It was not there from the first. It was a deception of what I call the self-delusion, which is the delusion of self. When it finally falls in on itself, when that concentration becomes solidified and then dissolves, there's not a shadow of a doubt, because the separation which allows for doubt itself is gone. This is where the practice really must be done with great care. This is where guidance, in a sense, is even more important. So please see the path of Zen in a way is so simple. It's not even one. It's so simple, and yet I urge you to devote the rest of your life to it. Please. The further you go, the deeper it gets. Naturally, we need to live our life in accord with this life of practice. It's not, again, just something we do on the cushion and then we go out and do something else. That division itself must dissolve. You must be able to find yourself in the depths of the practice in the middle of an argument with your boss. Otherwise, it's useless. It's less than useless. It's probably an escape. So we must not just practice, yes, by all means, but equally important is to live the rest of our life. What we say, what we think, how we deal with others, in accord with this practice. All we really need to do to truly begin and sustain it is to open up to the heart of the matter, and that is what is under your own feet. It's not something you read in a book or hear from another. All of that can be helpful, can be useful, can be an inspiration, but we have to first and foremost open up to what is the heart of the matter, under our own feet, not spend the rest of your life mentally meandering, having your mind go around and around. This is the necessity of proper and sustained practice. It's tragic to see people spending years, even decades, sitting in zazen, but they're just going around in the same old circles, or maybe slightly more Zenistic circles in their head. It's tragic. It's tragic. The practice must begin under our own feet. Naturally, to lock on to what is it that is really calling us from the depths of our being, to live truly, to not escape from this. This is our own work. Each one of us must face this with humility, with patience. Then proper guidance can really be helpful. Milan mentioned that recently you have been looking at the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. It's as good a place as any. As you know, one of the basic points of this legendary story is the head monk expressed his understanding as a kind of, we must constantly practice and polish the mind mirror so that not one particle of dust remains, continually, constantly polishing the mirror. In contrast to this, the guy who became the sixth patriarch responded with a poem which basically said, originally, it's usually translated originally, it's better to say really, right here and now, honrai in Japanese, really, from the first. Really, right here and now, there is not one thing. In Japanese, honrai mu ichimotsu, literally, really, not one thing. Where can the dust alight? It's very, very common in pseudo Zen circles to take this and say, see, the head monk was practicing dualistically. He still had a dualistic notion of polishing a mirror to get enlightened. He was wrong. The sixth patriarch, he was enlightened. So he saw through, and D.T. Suzuki himself spoke of it as like throwing a bombshell into the camp of the head monk by saying, from the first, there's not one thing. Where can the dust alight? There's not a body, there's not a mind, there's on the stand. There's not one thing. Where can the dust alight? If you are going to seriously practice the Dharma, you have to realize the truth and the validity of that head monk. You have to polish your mirror until there is not one particle of dust, until there's not even a mirror to be polished. Then you'll see that he's speaking just as truly as the sixth patriarch. They're walking hand in hand on the way. Then you'll know what it really is for there to not be a single thing. Polish that mirror patiently, moment by moment, day by day, until there is not a thing, until you realize, yes, from the first, there is not one single thing. And that not one single thing works freely in the world, which is not one single thing. Just as good a place as any to make it clear, since you are dealing with the sixth patriarch. Huh? Please see how important it is. You cannot spend the rest of your life lingering on the edge, looking down, occasionally having glimpses and insights, becoming ordained maybe, doing retreats perhaps, being given a koa, all the time lingering on the edge. It will not do. Do not waste your life in vain, I urge you. The practice, we must lock onto it in a way that it locks onto us. When you do that, when you open up to what's underneath, patiently and humbly, when you stop escaping, running away from what is here, you, in a sense, lock onto it and it locks onto you. You can't escape. You can't turn to something else until this is clear beyond a shadow of a doubt. Otherwise, face it, you're wasting your time. And I'm not talking about something up in the air or abstract. When you fall in love, it's the same thing. When you fall in love, when you really fall in love with someone, do you linger on the edge? Huh? No. If you do, you didn't fall in love. Why do you think we say fall in love? No, you've got to dive all the way in if you really want to know. Isn't love precisely that? The distinction is null and void. confirming for yourself. That's what great compassion, that's what true love is, isn't it? Separating from that separation, confirming that you are two and yet one. Isn't that what true love is? Overcoming that self-made distinction. Well, it's no different here. You cannot stand on the edge, linger at the edge. It will not do. When you see that this is what must be done in this life, and you are ready, dive in. We can't be together physically for a while, but you can always be in touch with me through online means, and we can do the best we can that way. I'm here for you. Once you've seen this clearly for yourself, once that distinction itself has dissolved, once it becomes clear, there is not a single thing, then the practice really begins. Spending the rest of our lives joyfully deepening, maturing this love, this great compassion, this true creativity, coming from nowhere and returning to nowhere, creatively, really creatively responding, not just rearranging the elements. That's not true creativity at all. True creativity comes from this, being without self. Being able to respond. No, we're not going to solve all the problems of the world, but this is a good place to begin. Let us work together to do just that. Thank you again for your time and for listening so intently.
Thank you, Jeff, for the Dharma talk, and appreciate it as always. If anyone would like to ask any questions or comment or say anything, we have a few minutes open here, so just feel free to take yourself off mute and go ahead and speak up. Okay, I have a question, Jeff. It's one of the things that I emailed you. But there's this notion of like getting something out of the practice. Like I come to Zen practice and like there's something missing. And so then I think that through the Zen practice, I can somehow acquire this notion of liberation or satori, for lack of a better term. And I find that, that attitude sometimes pervades my own practice because, I'll apparently be waiting for something, or I'll, be in a process of gauging of what am I getting at? I'm at a retreat, or I've done this for this long, and is there something that I'm getting? Versus asking myself, well, what is it that I can bring to it? And I was just wondering about this notion of polishing the mirror, or the unconditional daily practice, and how to square that with this notion of trying to get something out of Zen.
You say that something seems to be missing or lacking. What is that, Lon?
Well, that's the question, really. Is if there's nothing missing or lacking, what am I doing?
That's just that's just mental masturbation. What is missing, Milan? What is lacking? Until you make that clear, you will just continue going around and around, creating questions and maybe getting answers, and then another question and another answer and another question and another answer. You have to make it clear, Milan. What is missing? What is lacking? You keep seeing it in a way and then you divert, then you run off to something. You see that, right?
Yeah, it appears that way.
Yes. What is missing? What is, it's not for me to tell you. You have to look into the depths of your own practice. What is really missing? What is really, make that clear and your work is done. Giving, receiving, forget that. What is really missing or lacking? What is it? There's some vague sense you have. Make it clear. Dive into there and don't let go until it's clear beyond a shadow of a doubt. Don't turn it into another question. You know that will just go on and on and on. It's just a symptom of the dis-ease. Once again, what is lacking? I'm not asking for a textbook answer, Milan. I'm asking in the depths of your own being, what is lacking? As they say in Chinese practice, stick that on your forehead.
Thank you.
So I don't know my question is proper or not. So Jeff, I just want to know, do you eat meat? Thank you.
Unfortunately, my wife is a very good cook. And I often tell her, please, I don't need to eat meat, maybe a little fish. I live in Japan. My wife is Japanese. But she says, well, a little bit of meat adds a little bit of punch or something like that. And so, yes, I do eat some meat. Even when I go out sometimes, yes, I eat meat. Am I going to go to hell for this, May?
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, it's good. Whatever, it's a personal experience because I've been, more than 10 years vegetarian. I even don't eat garlic and like scallion. But recently I feel my needs, just go back a little bit to eat meat. I'm struggling, but it's okay. Thank you.
Yes. Gautama Buddha was not a vegetarian. Buddhism is not about vegetarianism. Originally, it was receiving whatever you were given as an offering and gratefully eating it. It's thought that Gautama Buddha actually died from eating some perhaps pork or the sauce of pork that was poisoned. So he was not a vegetarian. But the idea of not taking life developed into a kind of vegetarianism in Buddhism. And I think it's a very good thing. It's a very good principle. The garlic is a bit more difficult, May. The first real insight I ever had was after a retreat that didn't go very well. I didn't like it at all. It was kind of a bummer. But a few days later, completely forgetting, it was my first real retreat. I was cooking, Marty knows, in Hawaii, in Honolulu. Marty and I were in graduate school at the time. And I was using garlic, and the smell of the garlic, which I love, wafted up, and boom, I realized Mu. I was working on the Mu koan. I am Mu. Everything is Mu. It was completely transparent. I didn't know what to do. I went to my bed and sat down and chanted the 4 vows. And the next morning, I went into the teacher there at the Kokoan Zendo in Honolulu. But what do you say to that, May? I'm so corrupt and decadent that my first insight was through garlic. It's a
Yeah.
shame, isn't it? I must have done something really wrong in my past life. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Jeff. You know, I know some monks, they have a very difficult to choice. Like they always take something the lay people offer. So that made me, you know, because now I choose food myself. Sometimes I'm still struggling to buy meat or not to buy meat. Yeah, thank you.
Struggle on and let us know where you end up. I appreciate it, May. I will remind my wife this evening, okay? One more time, please. Go easy on me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We still have a couple minutes here allocated to the speaking portion. So if anyone else wants to say anything, please feel free. Otherwise, we'll take a break till 9:20.